What's up guys, this is Chetan for Phone Radar and today we are comparing the Eureka and the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4G. This can be one of the ultimate smartphone battles, though the ones we are going to compare aren't the best devices in the market. They are only good for the price and for several other factors. They can be called the best budget smartphones with the 4G connectivity currently. But there are some advantages of one over the other, and in the end it comes up to what you want in your smartphone, compromising a bit on some other less important factors. The specs on both the smartphones are convincing enough as they come with a 720p 5.5-inch display, a 13-megapixel rear and 5-megapixel front cameras, and while the Eureka has a Snapdragon 615 chipset, the Redmi Note 4G comes with a Snapdragon 400 processor. There's quite some difference in the processors, though the performance doesn't solely depend on the internal hardware. While the build quality, I'm not still convinced about the build quality of Eureka, which although is much lighter at 155 gram compared to 185 gram of Redmi Note 4G, and thus more preferred, the body of Eureka gives the feel of holding a cheap phone, but at the same time we won't give the full credit to Redmi Note 4G as the curvy corners and the glossy back make it more slippery in the hand, and the glossy back is more prone to scratches. Chrome finish buttons are seen on both, but the placement is very awkward on the Eureka, with the volume button getting pressed whenever the power button is pressed on the other side while we try to stabilize the device with the same hand. With both the devices coming on the same screen size and display resolution, they are a lot different with the content output, as the Eureka seems to have an oversaturated display while the Redmi Note 4G has a lesser saturation than needed on some colors. Especially in the greens and blue, the picture will give you a fair idea of how the Redmi Note looks a bit more natural, but the Eureka does a little better job in the sunlight readability with the adaptive brightness feature. The sharpness seems better on the Eureka and the contrast is better as well. Still, we are not convinced overall with the display as the blue saturation takes away the natural feel. The cameras, although are same with the megapixel count, there is a difference in both software and hardware. Sony's sensor is seen in Eureka while there is a Samsung sensor in the Redmi Note 4G. Capture quality is much comparable in broad daylight, both the devices taking photos with similar quality. But when we take a look at a few low light captures, the difference is a lot, and it comes down to how the user wants the capture to be. Bright but a lot grainy in Eureka, darker but less grainy in the Redmi Note 4G. You can notice it in these capture samples that the blue and green come out more than what you expect with the Eureka, and the other way around in Redmi, which tends to have a lower saturation. And again, don't go with the samples directly on the Eureka's display because you have to transfer them to the larger displays or on your computers to actually understand how the coloring is. While the camera shakes are very much evident in the videos captured from both the devices, it was lesser on the Redmi Note 4G's videos. Eureka with the Cyanogen mod ROM wins hands down when it comes down to the OS. It comes with the Android 4.4.4 Cyanogen mod 11S, while the Redmi Note 4G comes with the Android 4.4.2 based MIUI version 5. MIUI seems a very limited OS as the user has a few options to play around with compared to the big number of features and customizable options given to the enhanced user interface in the Cyanogen mod. The performance on both the devices is good, but Eureka is a touch better credit to the processor as well as the Cyanogen mod. Switching between the apps or scrolling through the home screen seems smooth and quicker in the Eureka than in the Redmi Note 4G. While gaming, the experience is almost the same, with Eureka getting heated to a considerable amount when compared to the Redmi Note 4G. While the OS and performance is where the Eureka excels, the Redmi Note beats it with the battery life. It's not just about the capacity, but also the way battery drains on data network connectivity while keeping the screen active. The 2500 mAh battery on Eureka lasted for 21 hours with about 3 hours of on-screen time when we used only Wi-Fi for most of the time, but could last only for 11 hours on the 3G network. The 3100 mAh battery on the Redmi Note 4G could go on for about 31 hours with the similar conditions on Wi-Fi, while it took about 19 hours on the 3G data network, so that is better on the Redmi Note 4G. The connectivity is almost the same, with both the devices supporting 4G LTE with the Indian band support and the other standard connectivity options, but for the SIM options, the Eureka comes with 2 SIM card slots compared to a single SIM slot in the Redmi Note 4G. We haven't been able to test the 4G connectivity properly on both, thanks to the area network where we don't have 4G network availability, except some usage on 4G while traveling on the Redmi Note 4G, which is not good enough to conclude about the connectivity. Overall, which one fares better? Given there is no big difference in the pricing, it is more about what the user wants from their smartphone. While the Eureka seems better in some areas, the Redmi Note 4G emerges a winner in some other. If you are looking for a smartphone with an OS that makes you interested in doing more and more cool stuff, Eureka is your choice. But Eureka again is the one you should purchase if you are very much concerned about the overall performance. If you are someone more concerned about the battery life than the OS, go for the Redmi Note 4G. Slight difference in both, but when it comes to display, camera and the other hardware, but the decider between both is the number of SIM cards allowed, battery life and the interface. And our final vote would be the Redmi Note 4G, because although it has a single SIM card slot, the main advantage here is the battery life, and in our tests for about a couple of weeks, the battery life on the Redmi Note 4G seemed to have been a lot better than on the Eureka, and battery life is one of those areas where most users would be concerned about. So that was the comparison between the budget smartphones, the Eureka and the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4G. Do like this video and share it with your friends, and subscribe to Phone Radar for more videos. Thank you.